Stephanie Wild here, psychic medium and spiritualist minister, bringing you another miracle moment in which I translate a random paragraph of the text of A Course in Miracles. So my morning meditation turned into all-day meditation. So it's kind of later in the day than I would normally pop up. But here we go. So today's paragraph is page 485, paragraph 1. And it's the beginning of chapter 23 of the text of A Course in Miracles. And it's titled, The War Against Yourself. So this is a bit later in the text than I have opened it up to previously. So it may feel a little sticky and heavy, but bear with me. It's actually... once I translate it, it's simple. Okay, so let me read it a bit. Do you not see that the opposite of frailty and weakness is sinlessness? Innocence is strength, and nothing else is strong. The sinless cannot fear, for sin of any kind is weakness. The show of strength that attack would use to cover frailty conceals it not. For how can the unreal be hidden? No one is strong who has an enemy, and no one can attack unless he thinks he has. Belief in enemies is therefore the belief in weakness, and what is weak is not the will of God. All right, so that sounds kind of pretty heavy and Bible-y, but all it means is that when we are angry with someone, we're not in alignment with infinite intelligence. We're not connected to source. We're not in communication with cosmic consciousness. And that is weakness. That is frailty. And that is letting our ego lead us. So if we believe that someone is doing us harm and therefore we are justified in being angry with them or resentful, then that means that we believe in living our lives in weakness and in frailty. And that frailty is not connected to infinite intelligence or source or cosmic consciousness, because cosmic consciousness is absolute strength. It can be nothing else. So all it's saying, so we can put that into practice. When we notice we're getting angry at someone, understand that, oh, I'm in my ego. That is not the truth of reality, and I am showing frailty and not strength, right? Don't be fooled by your ego. And, you know, and after all is said and done, what that means is we do not have enemies. We do not have, no one is our enemy. Everyone is just an ally, showing us flaws in ourselves. So let me unpack each one as we go. Do you not see that the opposite of frailty and weakness is sinlessness? So sin here just means that the belief in that we can be separate from God. And God is just source, infinite intelligence, cosmic consciousness, the quantum field, the unified field, if you want to think of it like that. So, so then it goes on, innocence is strength. Nothing else is strong. So all that means is freedom from the ego, right? And absolute surrender to the reality of reality, which is the quantum field, connection to quantum field, connection to source. The sinless cannot fear. So if we are connected to cosmic consciousness, we cannot fear. There's no possible way we can be afraid because we're connected to this, the universe. So The sinless cannot fear, for sin of any kind is weakness. Okay, so any belief that we are separate from cosmic consciousness, any belief that we as a human can actually do anything that can actually live and have free will separate from cosmic consciousness is a flaw. It's a weakness. It's a frailty. So the show of strength that attack, and when the Course says attack, it just means anger, really, attack or anger. You know, when you're having attack thoughts, angry thoughts, resentments and things. So the show of strength that attack would use to cover frailty conceals it not. So you get angry, you might look strong to people, but in fact, that you're not fooling anyone is what it's saying, because it says here, for how can the unreal be hidden? So the ego, right? The ego is illusion, anger is illusion. It doesn't all really exist. It's just a show. It's just a show that we put on. So when you're getting all angry, hot under the collar, yelling, screaming, blaming, you're not fooling anyone who's of any sort of evolution. It just looks silly because they know that you're coming from a place of fear. They know that you're coming from your ego. So no one is strong who has an enemy. So this is key, I think, because if you think that you have an enemy, if you think people are hurting you, you're not in touch with cosmic consciousness. And that's a weakness. So if you're thinking, oh, my ex-husband wants to hurt me because he wants to take the kids. If you're thinking, oh, the so-called president is harming everyone, is really creating trauma in people. If you believe, oh, my teenage kid is hurting me on purpose because they're doing drugs or whatever. If you're thinking of any of these people can actually harm you, then you're in your ego, and that's a weakness. It's not a strength. Because any of those things, any of those people are just serving as a magnifying glass on your own flaws. So my father sexually abused me, and of course for many, many years I was angry. He was my enemy, absolutely. But after a long period of time and going through this process and practicing this kind of thinking, this new way of thinking, and discovering that I was happier and happier and happier, I now realize he's not my enemy, he was my ally, because he taught me empathy, or he allowed me to discover a deep empathy for people. But it's a long way through. We definitely have to start in anger. A lot of spiritual teachers say, oh, just pray for that person. Oh, just love them. Oh, love your enemy. Yeah, okay, that's all great. But, you know, you start from anger and you practice thinking differently, and you get evidence of the truth of that because you're getting happier little by little by little. But, you know, this text is the underpinnings of the theoretical underpinnings of the lessons. It's not telling you have to jump from 1 to 100 in 1 second. Okay, so there we go. What is weak is not the will of God. So whenever you're in your anger, whenever you think this person's hurting me, you're not connected to source or cosmic consciousness or the unified field. You are in your ego and you're just believing your thoughts. And so that's just a sign to stop for a second and remember that everything is for our own best purpose, is for our own highest purpose, is for our own good. And this so-called enemy in front of us is part of our spiritual lesson. you're not expected to suddenly get it and suddenly be all happy and suddenly be enlightened. Not at all. But just know that that is the truth and work on it day by day, lesson by lesson. All right, so that's the miracle moment for today, and it was a pretty intense one because it had a lot of the Christian vocabulary in it. It was a pretty advanced one, but that's where we're going. That's where we're going. As we do the lessons, 365 of them, that is where we're going, is to be grateful and see those who appear to have done the most harm to us, to understand that they are our greatest allies. It doesn't happen in one day for very many people. Some people have a spontaneous enlightenment, but not many people. So I hope that kind of inspired you. But if it all felt a bit intense and heavy, that's fine. It's pretty advanced, and by advanced I just mean later in the book, and later in your process. So that's the miracle moment for today, and please remember to watch out for the launch of my podcast Miracles in Manhattan, in which I will be taking everybody through A Course in Miracles, lesson by lesson, one lesson per episode, with my good friend Marco Meister, co-host and producer. And we're going to be talking about applying each lesson. We're going to do it on the podcast, so you can actually do it with us. So you don't have to like go home and wonder what's going on. You can actually do it there while you're listening. And we're going to talk about lots of sex and dating and relationship stuff, because that's where everyone gets sticky. Ooh, I didn't mean that. Just come out the way it sounded. All right. So until tomorrow, until next time, love you. Bye.